Leylah Fernandez continues to make a huge impact on the WTA Tour. She just had another 2 really good wins, including a come-from-behind win after a set-down and a breakdown against Anastasia Pavlyuchenkova. Yes, she did lose to Shelby Rogers in a third-set tiebreaker, and I really think it was only a few points here and there that really decided that match. I broke down in another video how she beat the number 2, 3, 5, and 17 in the world in her US Open run. I'm posting that link if you haven't seen it in the description below. My name is Meike Babel. I'm a former top 27 WTA player. I competed in the main draw of 19 Grand Slams. And today I want to talk about Leylah Fernandez's mental toughness. The mental skills that she's shown us now at the US Open and again at Indian Wells. Yes, she lost, but I think you can clearly see what this woman is capable of. And I'm not going to leave it at that. I'm also going to tell you how you can work in those 3 areas. If you like this video, let me know in the comments. Let me know what you would like to work on in your mental skills or what you're struggling with, because that is something that I always want to hear so I can put out more content that hopefully can help you. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, please click the like button and then maybe also click that little bell symbol, because that lets you know that I'm putting out new content. So let's get started. I want to show you a point from her match against Anastasia Pavlyuchenkova that I think really shows the essence of Leylah Fernandez. Let's take a look here.
She earned it.
What I admire so much in this point and in all matches is her determination, her grit, her attitude of just like, hey, I don't care what you're doing. I'm just not going to go anywhere. I'm just going to stay right here and I'm going to make life miserable for you. And that's not that easy to do when you're 18 years old, 19 years old. Sorry about that. I'll give you a part of her press conference after the Pavlyuchenkova match that speak to 2 of the things that I think that she's doing really, really well. Tonight wasn't the best feeling ball-wise. She was hitting her targets well. I was missing them by maybe an inch or 2. That definitely made a difference in the first set. I'm not going to be playing my best tennis all the time. I know where my level is at during training. I know what I can produce on court. I'm learning to kind of accept the good and the bad, seeing what I can improve on. The first thing that I think that makes her so strong is that she expects and embraces adversity. If you read her score lines from the US Open and you see the ups and downs, there are just so many tons of momentum changes, and she knows that she will hit some lows. That is just normal. And it's her resiliency, really, her ability to bounce back when she gets into one of those lows that I think is so stunning, again, for somebody that young. And, you know, some days you will just not play your best. You will not feel one of your strokes. Mats Wilander said it at one point that however many matches he played, he's only remembering 3 matches where everything felt great. And the other times he needed to figure out a way to compensate for the shots that he wasn't feeling as confident with. So some things will be against you. And it could be that your opponent is just crushing you, just kind of steamrolling you. What are you going to do? Are you just going to go away? Or are you hanging around? But Leylah Fernandez clearly knows how to hang around. Just consider her statement after she beat Naomi Osaka at the US Open, and basically saying like, well, the first set was over way too fast. I wanted to hang out there longer. So what are you doing? You're making more shots. You're just running every single ball down. You're running everything down, even if people are like, why is she running for that? She's not going to get it. Yes, she does get them. And she's able to put them back into play. And with our scoring system, you're never out of the running. Nobody can run the clock down on you and just sit there and go like, well, that's, that match is going to finish itself. No, our matches in tennis need to be finished actively. And in world-class tennis, it can be the difference between 1 or 2 points if the momentum is changing. And then when the momentum is changing, Leylah Fernandez is there. She does not sabotage herself by getting down on herself, by being negative, to really miss the opportunity to come back into the match. And that is resiliency, and that is what I admire so much. It's really all about knowing that you will have those up and downs in a match, and most certainly in a career. And it's all about accepting that this is going to happen and then having a game plan for that. And that is what I think Leylah Fernandez really has. Her game plan and her fallback plan on is sounding really simple. I'm going to run every single ball down. And if it means that I'm running up and down the stadium stairs, I don't care, I'm going to do it. And I'm going to keep my composure. So next time you watch a match of hers, look at her body language. Her facial expression does not change at all, whether she's winning or losing. You cannot tell at what stage of the match she's in. And that is certainly not one of the things that you could have been saying about me. But that's another story. The other thing that she does is when she's winning points, she's very verbal and very, very actively pumping herself up. And even after she's lost points, when she's going back to the back fence, you can see sometimes a little slap on the thigh, a little pump fist, just to get her back up when she's having to play the next point. And that is really cool. So what can we take away from this? The number one thing is always, always, always expect adversity. And this is not a negative outlook on anything. That's just reality. And it could be anything from your opponent making funky calls. It could be, that it's really windy outside or rainy or something. Maybe you haven't slept great or whatever it is. Expect that there's something that could go wrong. And ideally, before this actually happens, formulate a backup plan. And ideally, you practiced implementing that backup plan. So visualization is fantastic. It's a fantastic tool because if you do it often enough, your brain treats that event as if it had really happened. Meaning that you can visualize, when my opponent is making a not so great call, instead of getting into a fiery argument, I'm going to go back to the back fence. I'm going to take a couple of calming deep breaths, and I'm going to adjust my targets, because if they make a bad call once and you thought it was deliberately, they're probably going to make another one. So I'm just not going to give them the opportunity. I'm not going to rise to the other team, cheering on their player. I'm going to go back to the back fence. I'm taking calming breaths, play with the strings. I keep my eyes very contained, and then I'm ready for the next ball. So that is one of the ways that world-class athletes deal with adversity. They expect that it's going to happen, and then they have a backup plan. So maybe take a minute and just write down what you want to do when you hit a rough spot. The second part of Leylah's statement speaks to the fact that she has growth mindset. I know where my level is at during training. I know what I can produce on court. I'm learning to kind of accept the good and the bad, seeing what I can improve on. So learning and improving are the key words here. Growth mindset versus fixed mindset is the belief that talents and attributes that you have can be improved, can be developed. A fixed mindset is like, well, okay, that's how I'm made, and I can't do anything about it. But in growth mindset, you're always, always looking for ways to improve, to get better. Most all major athletes, I'm thinking about the greats like Tiger Woods, Michael Jordan, and for sure, the best tennis players have growth mindset. Take Roger Federer, for instance. He was number 1 in the world, dominating when he hired Stefan Edberg. Because at that point in his career, Federer realized that he's not going to get younger. There's this crazy dude, Rafa Nadal, who wants to play rallies with 20, 30, 40 shots, and Roger Federer can't hang with that anymore. So he sought out the expertise of possibly the best serve and volleyer of all times, and added serve and volley into his game to keep points shorter. And that is growth mindset. So in Leylah Fernandez's example, she isn't the tallest and the strongest of all players, but that never limited her belief that she can still make it in the pros. So she might have said something like, well, yeah, I'm only 5'6". That's what the WTA bio says. But I am going to be the toughest, the strongest, the quickest, the fittest, the most agile 5'6" players that is out there, period. And I am going to outwork you. And I think that's what she did at the US Open. She mentally and physically outworked the number 2, 3, 5, and 17 in the world. All players that have way more experience. But Leylah Fernandez said, like, okay, this is a challenge. I'm going to accept that challenge. Let's see what happens. And it worked out pretty well for her. And I'm pretty sure that she is not going to stick her head in the sand, her and her team, after the loss to Shelby Rogers. I'm pretty sure they're going to go back to the drawing board. Okay, what can I learn from this? So what can we learn from Leylah Fernandez, and how can we use more growth mindset in our own careers? And yes, I am saying career, even if you're not somebody who relies on tennis as their means to make a living, because I do believe that we all have room for growth. Doesn't matter if you're 2'5", 3'0", 4'5". We are in a sport that you can play until you're 90 years old, and while we're at it, we might as well get better. So what can we take away from that? Are you a player who in drills, when coach is asking, what do you want to work on? You want to work on all the stuff that you already know? Then maybe it's time to challenge yourself a little bit. Growth mindset implies that it's okay to fail, that we use that as research data basically to figure out what we can do better. So choose the drill, choose the stroke that you have issues with, where you have room to grow, and work on that, because it's going to make you better. It's going to make you a more rounded player. If you lose, that is part of the game. Again, super cliche, but people with growth mindset are more interested or more focused on the process of reaching a goal rather than just focusing on the outcome, win or lose. Maybe seek out a player that you otherwise wouldn't ask to play a match with because you feel the game styles are clashing and they don't match up well with you, which could mean that you're losing. I'm thinking about the pusher. Nobody wants to play a pusher because it's difficult to play. You know, somebody who gets every single ball back, but that is growth mindset. How can I find a way to beat this player, even if it means that I'm losing? Now for the last mental skill that I really, really admire in Leylah Fernandez. She does not compare herself to others, and that is a skill. When you're on tour, you're constantly compared to others. Every single point that you play is a direct comparison. It goes right at your guts. It goes right at your ego. Because yes, you're either going to win or you're going to lose it. Every week, the rankings come out and you are compared to others. And if you are a world-class player, you have been in that environment since you were 8, 9, 10, 12 years old. Another time she did not compare herself was when she was actually cut from the Canadian national support system for being too little. The issue is a lot of times that as coaches, you have to make decisions. They're made a lot of times based on who right now is at the top of the game and who in those groups of kids resembles most the physicality and the game style of those that are actually at the top. And unfortunately, either late bloomers, smaller kids, a lot of times kids born later in years will get cut because physically and maybe also emotionally and mentally faster or more developed kids have the upper edge there. I was actually one of those kids that also did not benefit from being born in November, because at times in the under 14 or under 12, I played kids that were a year and a half older than me. But what that does, of course, is it could absolutely discourage you. It could force you to look around and go, oh, I'm not 5'8" at age 10, 11. I'm only however tall she was. And be discouraged and go like, well, I'm never going to make it. Again, nope, I'm not going to compare myself to all the others. I'm not going to compare myself to what coaches think I might be in a sport that right now is dominated by the Williams sisters, by big hitters like Kim Kleisters, and then later on Sabalenka, Azarenka, people that were just bombing serves and hitting the ever-loving baloney out of every ball. What Leylah Fernandez did was pick a role model that resembled her most physically. Justina Na, world-class player, only 5'6" tall. So now at the same height. And I think, honestly, when you compare them, when you watch matches, and I was very fortunate to be at some point overlapping with Justina Na, and I did watch her a bunch of times, there's that same grit, the same, oh, okay, fine, I can't hit him that hard, but you're not going to out-hit me. I'm going to work harder. I'm going to play more versatile tennis than you. I'm going to use all kinds of stuff to throw you off rhythm because I'm not going to let you steamroll me. And that is what it means when you don't compare to everybody else and look at what everybody else is doing. You know who you are because you're a unique person and you find a way to uniquely work with your talents. Knowing what you can control and what you cannot control. You cannot control that somebody else might have more court time, that somebody else has more money than you to take lessons. You cannot control that. But what you can control is sit down and list your strengths and your weaknesses and find ways to improve both. And it might mean that maybe you can rearrange some of your routines and find some extra time to go out and work on your serves. A lot of times when we compare ourselves to others, we forget that we are very, very unique and we have to find unique ways to improve. So maybe you don't have as much court time. Maybe there are not as many indoor courts in your area. I'm in Colorado. There's not as many as, for instance, in the Northeast. Maybe you can work on more tennis-specific fitness stuff so that, when you get on the court, you can work longer and harder because you're fit. So there's always workarounds when you are faced with adversity. And by not looking at what the Joneses do, I think is the impression, it's a lot easier to focus on what you can control and how you can get better.